This is the story of Polish immigrant, World War II veteran and family man Stephen Michalak and his close encounter of the third kind on May 20th, 1967 in Manitoba, Canada. The Falcon Lake UFO encounter is in the history books, but new details have emerged. With the help of Stephen's son Stan, we uncovered the truth behind one of the most incredible UFO encounters in history. On this episode of Eric Mintel Investigates, the Falcon Lake UFO. My name is Eric Mintel. By night, I'm a professional jazz musician. But by even later at night, I investigate the paranormal. I, along with my team at Eric Mintel Investigates, travel the country, investigating all things paranormal. This is Eric Mintel Investigates. I am just so excited to have him here. For years, I've been trying to get a chance to talk with Stan about this incredible encounter that his father experienced. And Stan, it is such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And you're coming to us today from Winnipeg, correct?
I am Winnipeg, Manitoba, where the skies are currently covered in wildfire smoke.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got wildfires in northern Canada, and right, unfortunately, Winnipeg being right in the middle, everything that happens up north blows through here. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
it's not great, and we feel for all the evacuees who have been evacuated from their homes, but it's become a seasonal thing, and we're sort of getting used to it. But I don't want to get used to it.
Stan, this is just unbelievable. This encounter that your father had, it's part of the fabric of my life. I was born 5 months after this encounter in
Huh?
October of 1967. This happened in May of 1967, May 20th. For our viewers, basically, that may not know this story, I'm going to let you kind of recap with them a little bit, and I'll interject here and there. We're talking about the Falcon Lake UFO encounter. Your father was prospecting, had this incredible encounter, and actually had a physical encounter with this event. Tell us what exactly happened there.
I can give you a nutshell, sort of a Reader's Digest version, because it is a long story.
You were 9, right, at the time?
Yes, and important to note that it's my dad's story. It's not my story,
Correct.
but it turned into our story because the entire family was affected by it. Dad was in Falcon Lake, which is about an hour and a half east of Winnipeg. It's in an area called the Whiteshell Provincial Park, and it is part of the Canadian Shield. So anyone who knows geography or geology of North America, the Canadian Shield is a massive area that covers, I'm going to say, two-thirds of the northern part of Canada. It's quite large, and it is the remains of glacial Lake Agassiz, which covered all of North America at one point,
Hmm.
and then receded and left behind this fertile place, sort of fertile. Um, so it's when we say middle of nowhere, and I mean, I've been around the world in a variety of places with the military, and I've seen some pretty empty places. But but to be in the White Shell and to be in the Canadian Shield is to understand that there is nothing but granite, trees, and water.
Hmm.
That's it. There's nothing else. When you're in there, every rock and tree look exactly the same. So it's very easy to get lost. So dad is in a small corner of this, and he's there because he's been there before, and he has seen that there are deposits of nickel, silver, and gold. And we know that the area is rich in minerals because there are several gold mines not far away from where dad was. He was a real student of geology. He thought this stuff was really cool, and he studied it. And when he came to Canada in 1947, he recognized what a massive resource this country was for natural minerals and natural elements. He fell in love with nature. He fell in love with being out in the middle of nowhere. He loved being in the forest. He preferred it to being in the city.
Hmm.
And when he went out to Falcon Lake, his goal was Let's see if I can't discover some places where there might be precious metal. So he laid down actually a few claims in the area, had them registered with the government, and off he went on this May long weekend morning on Saturday. Really early, like before first light, he was up and out and into the bush he went. And again, when people say, well, he went in the bush, that's just bizarre. No, it's Dad. If he just kept heading straight north from the motel that he was staying in, if he just headed across the main highway and headed straight north, he would come across his claim and the areas around it, and he would poke around. So eventually he finds himself at a spot where there are some rich quartz veins, and quartz carries precious metals. So he said, hey, I could stop here. So he does. He has a little bit of lunch that he had packed with him, and he's busy with his hammer. He's got a pair of goggles on to keep the chips from going into his eyes. He's got rubberized gauntlets that he's wearing, and he's got his hammer, and he's banging away at some rock. Suddenly, behind him, he hears geese on the lake making a heck of a racket, and he thinks, oh, must be a fox or a wolf or something in the neighborhood that scared the geese. So he gets up from he was kneeling down, banging away. He gets up, he takes a look. No, nothing there. The geese go scattering across the lake, and he goes back to work. And he looks up, and above him, approaching from southwest, are two objects in the sky. And they are distant, but they are obviously getting closer. And he sees them as oval, he called them cigar shapes. Now, he's looking at them from the side. So that's what he sees. He sees these two cigar shapes that are coming down. One appears to be closer, it's bigger. The other appears to be further back. And they continue to come down. And he recognizes that the first one is coming really close. And then they stop, the far one, and is gone.
Wow.
Disappears, just zooms right back out, while the first one actually sets down on a rock outcrop, which is maybe 150 feet from him. So it sits down on the rock and stops. Now, he noted that when they were coming down, he noted that they were bright orange yellow color, that they were quite, and they gave off light, which meant that they were hard to look at, sort of like staring into the sun. And when the first one landed, it changed from those bright colors. It started to dull down, but it was still obviously glowing. And Dad, as an artist, as a painter, he remembers things in color. He remembers as a millwright by profession. He recalls and remembers detail of manufacture and machinery and right. So what he sees to him is a machine sitting on the ground, glowing, and that glow is changing from a bright yellow orange down to a sort of a reddish. He also notices that there are slits around the top. If you can imagine the craft as an upturned cereal bowl with another cereal bowl on top, with a third little bowl on top of that. So it's like a cupola, like a little, right? Like a little dome.
Yep.
And around that, there are slits. And out of those slits, there's a very bright violet, purple, magenta light. So this thing is sitting there. And Dad is kneeling down beside his rock that he's been chipping away at. I mean, my dad had a lot of expressions. And because he was Polish, they were always sort of salted with that accent.
Yeah.
And his favorite expression when he would talk about anything that was new to him, his favorite expression was, "What the hell is that?"
I said, "What the hell is that?"
So I can imagine him sitting there going, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah.
And thinking immediately, I got it. It's a machine. It came out of the sky. It's got to be an experimental craft of some kind. Canadian, maybe not. American, maybe. So he's thinking, okay, all right. Next thought, what the hell are they doing here?
Mm.
You're nowhere. and and later investigations showed that there was a rock quarry about a mile and a quarter, mile and a half away that was hidden because it was a quarry
Mm.
and perfectly flat on the bottom.
Mm.
And it was huge. So
Mm.
had they wanted to land somewhere, that would have made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Rather than coming down in the middle of nowhere on a rock. So he's looking at this craft and time is going by. This thing was on the ground. There are a lot of estimates, but we're pretty sure that we're talking about a half hour to 45 minutes.
Wow.
So it was there for a long time. And Dad was building up the courage, to get up and walk over. And he's still not quite comfortable with the idea. So he's still sitting there. So he reaches into his bag of tricks and he pulls out a sketch pad, which he took notes. He was a copious note taker about rock formations and whatever, weather, you name it, he put it in there. Got a blank page and he drew the craft.
Wow.
Now, as an artist, Dad knew how to sketch. He taught me that. That's actually one of my pieces behind me on the wall.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
So thank you. So he had this ability, right? So, and being a millwright, he actually added in dimension lines, notes, and when people say, well, that's just crazy talk. Like, weren't you just, peeing your pants? Like, weren't you afraid? And whenever he answers, he says, well, no, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was worth putting it down.
Yeah.
Now, no camera. That's too bad. But enough, right? So he sketches this thing. So he gets it sort of mapped out from what he can see, and he puts the sketch down with his pencil and he gets up. As he's going out onto the rock outcrop, he begins to notice a couple of things. First, there's a lot of heat coming off this.
Mm.
Even at 100 feet, he can tell that there's heat, and it's emanating, right?
Mm-hmm.
He can also tell that there are sounds. But when people talk about the incident and we talk about propulsion, and I've spoken to a number of physicists who have talked to me about non-Newtonian propulsion, this was nothing like anything we knew.
Hmm.
Now, Dad was smart enough and observant enough to recognize there's no noise. I've been next to a Harrier jump jet when it took off.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, these things are horrendously loud.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
As a military guy, I was involved in a lot of aircraft stuff, and even a propeller plane is hugely loud. This thing was almost silent.
Wow.
Except he could hear hissing. He could hear the sound of sort of pinging. And to him, and again, it's easy after the fact to go back and say what it could have been. But, we talk a lot about where it landed. Well, it landed on a rocky outcrop that was covered in moss and little bits of grass and whatever. And if this thing was hot, as it was, then as soon as it touches that stuff, it's going to burn everything.
Burn, yeah.
So the hissing could have been burning grass. It could have been burning leaves and twigs. It could have been burning moss. It could have been anything.
It could have been the thing cooling down too. It could have been.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, we know what happens when an engine stops. You hear cling,
Yep.
ping, ding, right? And the third thing that is predominant in this story, and it shows up over and over and over again, was the smell.
Mm.
He immediately catches wind of this horrible sulfur ozone stink.
Hmm.
It's like burning electric motors mixed with rotten eggs, mixed with burning. He notices those three things and he stops. And now he's maybe, 60, 70, 80 feet away. and he's looking and he's thinking, okay, it's a craft, it's American, it's a test craft. They're in trouble. Otherwise, why land here?
Right.
So he calls out, "Hey, Yankee boys, I can help you. You're lost. Tell me what the trouble is. Come on out. I can show you the way." Blah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
No answer, obviously. And then he tried Russian because that was his next guess. And then he tried his other languages that he knows. So he's Polish by birth, so Polish, some German. He even tried a little Italian that he had picked up. Nothing.
Wow.
So as he's standing there, he notices a few things. And it's been on the ground for a while. He's been standing for a while. He's been sort of walking to one side and looking, walking to the other side and looking. So he goes back to his sketch. He kneels down and he adds more details to his sketch. Rough dimensions, that looks like about 30, 40 feet around, looks like about 12 feet high, and he puts all that stuff in. And he notes things like metal, definitely metal. Puts that down. No rivets, no seams, no join marks, no panels. It looks like this thing has been crafted out of a single block of steel. So his thought is hot stainless steel. And now he's standing and looking, and a portal opens on the bottom of the craft. So as he's looking at it, it would be down and to his right. And it's about a 2 foot by 3 foot opening that happens not like this or like this. It happens as an iris on a lens.
Mm.
And it results in a rectangular opening. Okay, so now he's standing there, but the opening, if you can imagine the edge of the disc, it's shaped like a bowl, right? So when he's looking down at it, it's low because it's on the bottom.
Right.
So he actually kneels down on the ground to see if he can look inside. And he notices immediately how bright it is. The light coming out of the portals on the top and the one coming out of the door are all equally bright magenta light.
Wow.
And thankfully, smart guy, his goggles have a welder's plate, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
Because he borrowed them from work, right? So
Wow.
he's got the clear glass and he can't see diddly. So he drops the dark green welder's plate. Well, it helps with the brightness, but it doesn't help him being able to see any detail. So what he recalls about kneeling down and trying to look through that portal is when he stood up, all the dots popping in his eyes from looking at something way too bright. So back he goes to the sketch that he's left by the rock. He gets down and he adds the door. Now, what's interesting about this is that we thought that he made the sketch in one go. He didn't. He went back to that sketch 4 times to add detail.
Wow.
I noticed this immediately because when Dad taught me how to sketch, he showed me his method. And when I looked at the original sketch a number of years ago, I said, you know what, there's something not right here. This isn't Dad's work. Something's not right. Well, as the time goes on, and as he's returning to that sketch pad, rather than bringing it with him, which I don't know why he didn't do that, but as he's walking back and forth and he's doing the additions, you can see that he's more and more agitated with each addition. How do I know this? Because the original sketch, the outline with some basic notes, is all done in a very light hand. And I don't know whether you know anything about sketching, but most of the time when you're sketching, you're not holding the pencil like this and sketching. You're holding it like this,
Right.
sketching, right? When I looked at the sketch, the door in particular is a very heavy hand, like a very dark portion of the sketch.
So he
If
changed.
you look at the sketch, you'll see.
Yep.
And I know, and also a couple of other details have been added, like the ports on the top, the slits, those were added after the initial sketch. So we know this now, and we know that he kept going back to the sketch pad, and we know that as he was adding details, it was getting darker and more haphazard.
Mm.
So now instead of very gently putting in that door, he's sticking it in there. More, right? And knowing Dad and knowing how he works, that's exactly what was going on. He was getting more and more agitated with what this thing was.
Wow.
So he tried, the languages, nothing. Then he said he heard voices. When I spoke with him in later years, and even during the initial few years of interviews with the authorities, what were the voices? And he said, well, there was a low one and a high one. And I said, okay. Years later, when we were discussing this, and I can't remember if it was an interview or what it was, but he said, and of course, Dad being Dad, children, children in the schoolyard, children in the schoolyard. And I went, children in the schoolyard? What are you talking about? And it's not until you go to a playground and you listen and you can hear the kids when they're playing. Their voices are high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low. And it's just a mass gibberish that you can't understand it. And I said, okay, that's the sound. Yes. Okay. So not necessarily two people talking to each other, but just a massive gibberish that sounds like people talking. So now we have voices. So now Dad is going, okay, well, there's absolutely people in there. And off he goes with, hey guys, well, nothing. Now, he's looking at the portal, which is open on the bottom right. To the bottom left, there is a pattern of dots. We'll call them holes for better words, ports, holes, whatever, vents. And they're in a sort of a tall rectangle shape. And again, he counted, but I don't think he remembers accurately about the number. 6 by 9, 5 by 8, there was holes in a grid pattern, right? So he's getting closer. Now he's literally within reach, right? And he's still wearing his gauntlets and he still has his glass on. He's flipped it up because he can't see anything with that green glass anyway.
Right.
So he reaches out to touch the craft. And he does, and he touches it on the edge, near the edge of that disc, and immediately pulls his hand back because it's hot enough that it melts the fingertips of his rubberized gauntlet. So he realizes, oh, damn, that's hot. And as he realizes that, the whole craft, the door closes very quickly, and the whole craft begins to rotate counterclockwise. And Dad was specific about that. So it turns, and as it's rotating in place, it was sitting on a rocky outcrop, so it was not exactly level, right? So as it's rotating, it sits up and levels up, and it levels up and then begins to rise. When I asked Dad, was there an increase in sound? He said no. When I asked him, did you hear, and all the investigators asked the same questions. Did you hear a change in anything? Did you hear anything different? No. And more importantly, as the craft rotated and that grid of holes comes around in front of him, there's a burst of gas, steam, whatever you want to call it, that comes out of those grill holes and strikes him in the chest. So he falls back, his shirt is on fire, his undershirt is burned, he's burned. He had his cap on backwards, so because of the goggles, so the top of the cap is burned, the goggles are singed, and he's on the ground ripping his burning shirt off. And he pulls his undershirt off, he puts everything on the ground and he stomps it all out because it's all burning. He looks up and this craft is now way up there and then gone. So now he's hurt. He had burns all the way up to here and all the way down past his belt line. So he's burned and he's got no shirt on because he's taken off both his shirts and stomped them out. The outside shirt there's nothing left. There's little tiddly bits. The undershirt, which is one of those strapped shirts, is in pieces or kind of ripped apart. And he's standing there and he says,
The hell is that?
Like, what happened?
"What the hell?" So now he looks around and he realizes he's standing in the middle of a circle. There's a circle in front of him on the ground where all of the leaves, twigs, lichen, moss, everything has been burnt and swept away. And what he's seeing is he's seeing a perfect circle on the rock of where this craft had been sitting. So he, like any millwright, he goes, huh, well, that was roughly 30, 40 feet in diameter, so this must be smaller. And he starts to pace it off. I kept saying to him afterwards, for years after, I said, what were you thinking? You just got burned by some craft.
I had no idea. See, when you see these shows, and this is why
Yep.
it's so great to hear it from you, because when you see these shows, it's like he saw the craft, drew the sketch, and it took off. You don't hear all the little details going back and forth. Like he went back and forth to do this. But when he got hit by that, he actually, I mean, was he out of it at that point? Or
No,
because on the shows, they make it like he was like completely like throwing up immediately and he was like all out of it.
he was, but
Okay.
it took a few minutes.
Okay.
He had enough time to, gather up, the t-shirt and sort of try and make sense of all this.
And then it hit him.
The thing that triggered it was the smell, because that smell was still there.
That's a central thing here because that was
It,
like that became part of him for a long time.
it's huge, and yes, and I think at that moment he knows that it's not just in the air; it's on him.
Yeah.
And yeah, he immediately bent over, lost his lunch, started to get sick. Then he started to get dizzy. Then he started to get sweaty. Then he started to, now, and he's not a fearless guy. He was always a curious guy.
Mhm.
Now he's been burned, he's sick, and he's in the middle of nowhere. So survival kicks in, and he says, if I don't get out of here, I'm going to die here. He knows the highway is directly south. All he has to do is go south.
Did he take the bus there? Did
He
he go,
did.
he
Yeah.
took the bus and then he walked in.
He took a bus from Winnipeg to Falcon Lake to the motel where he stayed.
So
And
he went
and
back.
then in the morning he walked out into the bush. Yeah.
This again, and this is clarification, which I love because again, for years it's like people are saying, "Oh, he got in his truck and went back to the hotel," but he didn't have a vehicle. There's no way you could get a vehicle up there.
No,
He walked in, so he went back. Did he get the bus or did he walk back to the hotel?
the return of this episode journey, whatever you want to call it, the return is worse than the incident.